Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have you back here on Conversational Witchcraft with me, Dawn, the Kitchen Witch. Today, we have a very special guest. It is Elliot Adam. Oh my goodness. Elliot is an award-winning author of the Fearless Tarot, How to Give a Positive Reading in Any Situation, and the newly released Tarot in Love, Consulting the Cards in Matters of the Heart from Llewellyn Books. He began his professional tarot career at the age of 16, and at 20, he opened his own tarot shop, Athena's Oracle, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Elliot performs tarot readings for a substantial international clientele that includes Hollywood scriptwriters, high-level journalists, actors, doctors, and entrepreneurs. A true Gemini Moon, he also holds a doctoral degree in classic oboe. Visit him at elliotoracle.com and welcome him to the show, Elliot Adam. Woo! I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have you. And for everyone out there, you need to know that Elliot has been so effing patient with me because we have had to reschedule this recording like 3 times because of my flooding at the office, because of COVID in my lungs. Like, you have been so wonderful, so gracious.
Oh,
Thank you for your patience and welcome to the
oh,
show.
well, thank you for having me so much. And it is my pleasure. And I am just so happy to see that you're on the mend and that life is getting back to normal for you. So I give you all my best wishes with this, but absolutely life happens. And it's
Right?
what happens while we're busy making these other plans for sure.
Right. I feel like I should have, if I had met you before, I could have had a reading with you and you could have tell me just stay home in the month. Like fuck February. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything. It's gonna like you would have told me because you do readings for like everybody on the planet, apparently. Right?
Well, I usually like to think that sometimes our challenges are where our biggest breakthroughs happen. And
Mm,
sometimes we have to go through tough things in life because it
mm.
really forces us to grow, to adapt, to change our mindset, to check within again. So I think even in your last month, there's probably been this opportunity to really get back in touch with what makes you the strongest because it's not when everything's going well that we really are in our best self. It's when we get challenged a bit.
You're 100% right. I mean, it sucks, right? Because when things are going smoothly, we don't grow. It's
Yeah.
only when things are fucking upside down that we figure out like what we're made of, what we really want, and we prioritize. I think that was a big lesson like during the pandemic, right? Like we kind of all learned
Mm,
like what's working, what's not working,
yeah.
reevaluate, like, but don't you ever get to a point where you're like, can I just have a minute?
Yes.
Like,
Well, absolutely.
can we just have
Absolutely.
a minute? And why the fuck does it happen all at once? Do you ever notice that?
Absolutely. I think that it's important to just take a step back sometimes. And sometimes, even when those things are happening, it forces you to withdraw from other people, to put
Mm.
some boundaries down, to say, hey, listen, I'm at my limit. I can't do anymore. I have to check in with me. I have to take care of me right now. I just got back from a vacation for about 10 days or so by a lake in a cabin. And it
Mm.
just did me so well because I've been running nonstop since December with, no reprieve at all. So it's been so nice to have that time, as you say, to just, have it all stop for a moment. And I encourage you to take a vacation too if you can, because I think it's really does you well.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, right? Because there's a phrase that really sticks out with me that's always said, like, how does it go? If you don't make time for wellness, you'll have to make time for illness, right?
Wow, I
Right.
love
If you
that.
don't make time for wellness, you'll have to make time for illness. And you're so right that we often, especially, I mean, you're an entrepreneur, you're a tarot reader, you've got your shop, you've got your writing. People in our line of work tend to always push because
Hmm.
it's all up to us, right? So
Hmm.
we try to go, oh, I'm going to be better up at this. I'm going to take a day off here. I'm going to take. We never really do, and when we don't, we hear those messages. We get those messages from the universe
Hmm.
that are like, you need to slow the fuck down. And we go, I'll slow the fuck down later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. And then all of a sudden your warehouse floods and you get COVID and you're fucked. So
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
If you don't listen,
absolutely.
if you don't, so you are so in tune that you listened and you went away for 10 days, which is amazing.
Well, sometimes life doesn't let us, we can't always take a vacation. It isn't always available, but when it is, steal it away because as you say, especially in the spiritual entrepreneurship, it is very much an energy investment. You have to be there for people. Even this meeting today, you're taking time out to hold space for me and to tune in and listen. I think that we do give a lot when it comes to our clients and the people that we're listening to, and it can get exhausting if you don't have some parameters around it. So absolutely, I think anyone who's listening, who's involved in empath work or
Mm.
healing work or spiritual work or intuitive work, it is extremely tiring because we're giving our all, we're giving 100%.
And you've been reading since you're 16. So I mean, you look very young. I'm going to say that you're probably like 19 now. No. You've been reading for a really long time. So you've had a lot of time to figure out how to handle those boundaries, right? Because when you're on the other side of that
Mm,
table doing a reading,
mm,
you're taking in a lot of energy from people, right? So like just on the
absolutely.
same topic, like how do you create that boundary and keep yourself safe?
Yeah, well, that's a great question for anyone who's considering going into tarot readings. I did start reading for the public when I was 16. I got a little
Wow.
job in a tea house that this lady ran, and she said, "Wow, you're great." She had a reading for me, and she had me do a little psychic fair. And I thought, well, this is wonderful. I get to meet all these cool people. I had all this energy, but I didn't have any idea of boundaries. And it took many years to learn. And, thank you for the flattering comment. I have very nice lighting right now if people don't know. But I'm actually 43 now.
No,
And oh, yeah, yeah.
no,
Uh, but I
I'm
learned a lot of this.
43.
Oh my God, are you born in 79 then?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, we got this connection then. We're born in the 70s.
And you're a Gemini. Was
A
correct?
Gemini moon. I'm a
Gemini,
Libra sun. Yeah.
Libra sun. Okay. I'm a Scorpio
Yep.
sun. So I
Oh,
thought
I
that.
love Scorpio so much. Okay, so that's why we're friends now. But as I was saying, it's like when you're young, you don't know what you're doing. I would have clients who would sit down and they would go through the whole hour for a 20-minute reading, and then they'd have me go through all my cards, and then they'd say, "Oh, I have more questions, and let's go through the deck again." And I think, "Oh my God," at the end, I get so exhausted and starting to feel really heavy. And I had to learn to separate from people's energy a little bit because otherwise I was going home and wondering, did she ever leave that abusive boyfriend? Or, I hope she's okay. I hope she can pay her rent. She was really worried about that. And eventually it really added to my anxiety because I was just a kid. I didn't know how to handle all the things I was taking on in. And so it took a while to find out what doesn't work. And as you say, from the universe just having you burn out or having things go wrong or seeing something disastrous go on, it really helps you recalibrate and think, okay, something's not working with this current process that I have going on here. So let's figure it out. But I think it just comes with time. You learn, okay, I can't get pushed this way so much anymore.
So how do you like, can you give an example of how you're able to keep yourself energetically safe as a
Hmm.
reader? Because most of your work is really about helping other readers, right? So, I mean, of course, for the person on the other side of the table who's receiving the reading, but you're talking about teaching other readers, right? So if someone's asking you like, "Hey, I'm a reader, how can I?" What's a good example or a good exercise to protect yourself energetically while you're giving a reading?
It's so strange because in intuitive work, you think you're all about blending into the other energy of the other person and completely giving yourself over to them. But I learned a long time ago as a kid that when I would look up from my table and look for a facial expression or see if it's registering from the person, sometimes I'd look up and see people with a very skeptical look on their face, or their arms would be crossed, or they'd be really resistant to sharing. And so, what I learned is not to look at them, but to look at the symbolism, look at the cards, because tarot is a language of symbols. And that language isn't a literal language like the language I'm speaking right now. It's a language that our unconscious understands, our inner self. It gets that language of symbols. It doesn't understand, just the English language in a very cerebral way. And I learned that if I detach actually from the client in front of me, and instead I make it about the story of the cards and really just weave together the symbolism and run through it almost as if I'm reading a book, I'm detached from the person. But I found that at the end of it, the person always says, "Oh my God, what the hell just happened? That was so amazing." And it's because I trust the symbols. So when I go into a tarot reading,
Wow.
I leave me outside. I don't open my heart for them to just come into my head. I kind of have like this thin pane of glass between me and the person who's getting the reading until the end, of course, when I ask if they have questions and then we can go into things in a
Right.
more heartfelt way. But I find that that's for me just an easier way to go through it. It's almost just like reading a book or reading a story that's just kind of in front of me. It's a bit more detached.
I think that's brilliant because although you're a spiritualist person and you're working a spiritualist world, um, and of course you're talking to people and divining messaging from, greater intelligences and spirit, you're still there going, I have a job to do.
Hmm.
And my job is to read this language and interpret it to the client, right? And so by putting it through that lens, like you said, putting that glass up between you, you allow yourself to do your job
Hmm.
without getting too emotionally involved. And that's really what the client needs, right?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
want objective um um
Hmm.
knowledge. That's what, if I ever like have readings, I know so many readers and I know so many psychics, and so I deliberately go out of my way to try to find people that I don't know,
Yes.
right? Because their reading is going to be more accurate because they're not emotionally involved with me. I think that's a brilliant technique, Elliot. I think that's a brilliant technique.
I think the best readings that we give are to people that we don't know, usually, because we don't, as readers as well, have this personal desire to make them happy or to give them the information that they necessarily want. I don't say that, readers should also be overly cruel or callous or not compassionate when they're delivering a message. In fact, that's part of the reason I wrote my Tarot and Love book was I was getting a lot of clients who were coming in about relationship readings and you have to speak about relationship questions in a very sensitive way because people are coming to you with their most vulnerable, difficult moments and they're needing to navigate through that. But again, you can't get swept into it. I've noticed a lot of readers in my time who are so concerned with being right or resonating with the person in front of them that they're constantly checking with the client and almost badgering them into, does that make sense to you? Isn't that
Mm,
right? Oh, and then here's what I'm feeling. Right? Isn't that what I'm
mhm.
feeling? And it's like, no, 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 no. It's not the client's job to reassure you that you're correct, or to kind of muscle them into this interpretation they might not agree with. It's your job, as you say, to just interpret the language, to interpret the symbols in front of you. And that person, you might not know what's going on with that person, but that person will listen to the description of the symbols that you're giving them and they'll know exactly what that symbol is talking about. It will
Wow.
resonate on a level that you're not even aware of. So my advice to readers is get yourself out of it. Get your ego out of it. Get your need for validation. That doesn't belong there. You need to just read what's in front of you and it'll make sense.
That's such an important note. And I think that's, as people in spiritual working, whether you're in the witchcraft community or you're a medium or you're reading tarot or you're a writer of metaphysical books, or own a metaphysical shop, whatever it is, get your fucking ego out of it, right? Right?
Yeah.
I'm not here for my own validation.
Yes.
I'm here to help someone else. And if my story or my experiences help someone else, Awesome. But it's not about me. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people get into this work for the wrong reasons. They get into it for that validation. They get into it. Well, I'm right. I read tarot. I read oracle. I read this. I want to be, right. And I want people to love me because of what I do, but it's not about you.
Yeah. And it's an interesting point you bring up about the ego, get your ego out of it. I find as a reader as well, we can approach tarot any way we want. It's not this fixed thing. It really adapts to the reader and the person getting read. If we are reading for another person, I like to read for their higher self. I like to go beyond their ego. And I write about this in the book too. There's a whole section on pitfalls in relationship readings, because everyone's got a higher self and everyone's got their ego. And your ego is best friends with your fear. And if you're coming to the reading table and your fear is engaged or your ego is engaged, you're not going to get the answer you want. The ego will go card after card after card looking for the answer it wants to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally it'll get the card and then it'll say, oh, well, I got what I wanted, but it still feels hollow and empty. This isn't really resonating. This doesn't work. Whereas if you can bypass that ego, if you can get into a person's deeper self, if you can appeal to their better angels and talk to them on that level, then you're speaking on a higher level, and even a difficult truth, even something that's painful can be cathartic. It can be something that they really feel that they can transcend from.
Well, sure, because I love that. I love the way you put that the ego is best friends with your fear. And oftentimes we as human beings cannot decipher between
Mm,
our fear and what is real, because
hmm
our ego is sitting there next to the fear and they're having a great conversation. They're like hanging out and they're feeding you this information that's not true. It's all fucking lies. So
mm,
to approach this from we're not talking to ego, we're not talking to fear, not just for who you're reading, but also as the reader yourself, not reading from a place of ego and fear,
hmm
right?
hmm
I think that's I think that's
It's a
brilliant.
totally different experience, and it really, um, you don't have to worry about it resonating or hitting the mark or anything. It will every time. When you let spirit choose your moves, you win every time. And
Mhm.
if you let spirit choose your words when you're doing the readings, it's going to be right. And you don't have to, muscle someone into seeing your perspective. A reader who, if I meet them at first and they right away begin to tell me how psychic they are and how
Ugh,
they predicted this thing and
ugh.
that thing, and your eyes are rolling, and you're like, why do you have to say that? The cream will always rise to the top. Just do your job excellently, and people will know that when you're coming out and you're explaining or quantifying who you are, you're turning people off, and you're also kind of signaling, this is really about my ego.
You're also kind of like diminishing yourself and going like, you know, if you have something really important to say and you know your shit, you don't really need to scream about it. You don't need to be
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
look at me. I'm so wonderful. I'm the
yes,
best person in the world. You'll never have a better reading from anyone but me. If you're like,
yeah,
hey, come on over, let's have a conversation. That's
mm-hmm,
completely different. The energy around that is not from ego, right?
mm-hmm,
So, I mean, like I do a lot of events, do a lot of shows where, there's psychic festivals or they're, pagan fairs, and it's like vendors and classes over here and readers over there. And you can kind of walk around a reader's room and feel into it. And I think that's the kind of the point you're trying to make, correct me if I'm wrong, is the difference between that gut feeling coming from a spiritual place, coming from talking to spirit and interpreting spirit versus thinking, versus
mm-hmm,
I'm in my head, I'm listening to my
mm-hmm.
ego, I'm listening to fear. And I think once we tune into that, you can walk into a space, and we've all had this experience, whether it's at a psychic fair at the supermarket, we're thinking too hard about something, or we have a gut feeling to go this direction as opposed to that direction. Would you
Mm-hmm.
say that that kind of head versus gut feeling happens a lot with reading tarot?
I would say it's different for everybody, but I would say that it's even in the cards that we find the symbols for how to overcome those moments.
Mm,
Think of a lot of tarot readers; their favorite card is the High Priestess. And you can see the high priestess and the Rider-Waite Smith, and she's seated before the two pillars, and there's a veil, and it's blocking out this vast ocean behind her, which is a symbol for her lifetimes upon lifetimes of wisdom and experience that she's accumulated. But that veil's blocking it out. And the veil is decorated with pomegranates, which are the fruit of the underworld. And they represent our fear of change and death. And it's just like that veil. It's like, it's so skimpy, our fear, our ego, the thing that's obscuring that vast, deeper ocean of wisdom that's in all of us that we've had after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of coming back to this thing and doing this great thing we call life over and over again. And we have to pull that veil back. We have to pull aside our fear of change and transformation. And then we can really get into those deeper waters. So I think that there's all sorts of clues in the cards and nature and everything that we encounter that's constantly trying to nudge us back on track and get us to our deeper selves.
Wow. Wow. I love that so much. It's again, like this is just sort of like understanding your deep understanding of tarot and reading. And I'm wondering, you started reading tarot at such a young age, right? I'm wondering, is there anything you wished you knew before starting your career as a professional reader? Like,
I guess I would have wished to have known to have a time limit on my readings because, as I said earlier, I right now, if someone books an appointment with me, they're booking for my time, so they can book 15 minutes, they can book a half hour, they can book 50 minutes. But when that reading's over, it's the clock is done, and then it's time for the next client who's waiting to come in. It's not personal. It's not that I'm cutting you off. When I was younger, I was really sensitive about not appearing to people like I was just dismissing them, or I'm reading them and I'm just out for the money. And now the time's up and I'm kicking you out and all that sort of thing. So I would, sit there and they would go through my deck, first, the whole 78 cards asking questions. And then they'd say, oh, wait. I have another question. Oh, and I have another question. And I'd be there for some readings without that time limit for about 2 hours. And I'd be exhausted after this. So things that I wished I would have known, boundaries, also to charge more, because sometimes when
yes.
people don't value what you're doing or they're trying to get it for cheap, you're attracting a certain kind of energy that you don't want more of in your life, which is really
Yes.
exploitive. And,
Yes.
and that's not saying that, everyone should charge an arm and a leg for a reading. It should be reasonable. It should be accessible to people, but you don't want to be so cheap that people don't value your time. So I wish I would have
Absolutely.
known that too. I made a lot of mistakes. I had my shot from the year 2000 to 2005. And then I went to study classical oboe and I got a doctoral degree in that later. But I
That's
kind of
so
detached from
amazing.
tarot for a while. Oh, well.
That's amazing. I'm a music nerd. I did a lot of not like classical oboe, but like I did a lot of vocal work in high school and college, and I was going to go into music. That's what I went to school for in the beginning, but so music nerds are welcome here. So yay. I didn't mean to
I
cut you
love
off.
opera. Were you a contralto or a soprano or?
I was not in opera. I wanted to teach music to kids, which is weird because I fucking hate kids. But I wanted to be like a children's choral director. Because
Oh,
I
wow.
loved, I loved obviously musical theater, obviously.
Me too. I love
I
that.
mean musical theater. That was my first sort of love. But I never did. I mean, I did some private lessons. I was never an opera singer. I was a Broadway theater song person, and
I love that.
my partner is a musician, and he plays bass, mandolin,
Okay.
and guitar, and he's brilliant. So but I digress. Back to you and you're amazing. You said you were doing classical oboe, but you really couldn't detach from doing tarot. Like you were just so entrenched in
Yes.
it.
Well, tarot always paid the bills. So I closed my shop in 2005 and I went off to study music and I was running out of money. So I would just read people in my house, all of the clients I built up over all those years. We just have them over at my apartment and I do it that way. But I kind of walked away from tarot a little bit more. I started working on another part of my life. I was working on music. I was studying something different. I was then starting to be a little bit more social. You know, as a kid, when you're 16 and you're just working in a tarot shop, and I was a high school dropout by the time I was 18. I got bullied terribly for being gay, you know, and all of that sort of thing.
I'm so
I
sorry.
really didn't. Oh well, you know, it was the '90s. It was a totally different. It was before Glee, you know, but
Or Glee.
but
It doesn't make a
yeah,
difference. I mean, it still sucks, you know, it still
it does.
sucks.
It does. But you know, I'm glad for it. I am glad for it because it forced me to then go into this tarot journey. But then I found that I wasn't socializing. I was just day in, day out, attached to my oracle seat, you know, giving out
Mm,
readings. But I wasn't being a young person. I wasn't being a kid. I wasn't socializing and learning about making mistakes or things like that. I was doing everything so correct. And so going to college when I was 25 was just eye opening and wonderful. I still kept my tarot links, but I think that for any reader, it's so important you're well rounded, that you don't just make the spiritual life your whole life and you're just sucked into this thing, but that you balance it with other interests or other things. It really does inform your readings in a better way, and it makes you, I don't know, just a little bit more believable or relatable or
mm,
something. So it's another thing I wish I would have known as a kid. Like, you don't have to just be a tarot reader all the
right.
time. You can also have other parts of your life that have nothing to do with tarot, and you can enjoy that.
That's that's such good advice, not just for readers, but for anyone in the spiritualist kind of work life sort of thing, because the more well-rounded we are, the more we can engage with others, right? The more we can
Hmm.
identify with others, the more we can communicate with others. If our lives are uh how do I say it without sounding like an asshole? One dimensional
Mm,
and sheltered,
mm,
we wind up being incredibly close-minded. And we all
mhm.
know people like that who just have their blinders on. They don't know anything except what they grew up with or how they grew up.
Mhm.
They don't know people that are different than them. They don't know
Yeah.
cultures, religions, customs that are different than their own. And so that creates a very one dimensional worldview. If we are going to be in a any kind of spiritualist industry, we need to be able to communicate with all kinds of people, which we cannot do
Mhm.
fully if we aren't well rounded. So there's a really great point that you bring up, and being able to do more than just the one thing that you do. What a great point. What's on that note, are there any common myths about being a professional tarot reader
Oh God,
that that you want to debunk here and now?
yeah. Yeah, you know, when I started reading cards in the '90s, it was the age of Miss Cleo. And if your listeners don't know who that was, she was a television infomercial personality. I'm sure
Can
you
we
know her.
can we do it? Call me Miss Cleo.
Yeah,
Call me Miss
she
Cleo.
sounded
Call me
just
now.
like that.
Call me now. Okay. Side note: there is a documentary on HBO about Miss Cleo.
I
While I
love
was
it.
homesick with COVID, I watched it. It's very intriguing. You got to
Can't
watch
wait
it.
to see it.
You've
In
got to watch
fact,
it.
you just reminded me that I'm going to put that on my watch list. But you know, to debunk the myths, you know, that's what people thought tarot readings were.
Mhm.
We were just these people who are waiting by the phone for you to call us whenever you want, and we will magically pull out, you know, the most profound prediction for what's going to happen in your life, as if there's this book in heaven which is written all the things that are ever going to happen to you, and you just have to sit back passively and let things roll out as the tarot reader saw, and it's all
Right.
going to come true that way.
Right.
So my biggest myth about tarot is that the future is this fixed thing that you're passively just waiting to happen to you. The future is constantly changing based off of your choices right now. And there
Mm,
isn't this fixed, you know, purposeful destiny that you're just waiting to happen to you. In fact, your destiny is going to follow your agency, your choice, your decisions, and when you're your best advocate. So that's myth number one. Myth number two is just about the fear of tarot, because we've all seen the soap opera where Celeste turns over the tarot card and it's the death card.
Right.
And that means
Bum, bum,
somebody's going to drop
bum.
that. Yes, exactly. It's very dramatic. And, real readings don't really work like that. It's, death is a symbol most of the time. Sometimes it can mean death in a tarot reading, but usually that person knows that already when they're coming to the table. I can't say that I've ever surprised a person with the death card and said, "Oh wow, looks like there's going to be this death happening," and then the next day it happens. It doesn't really work that way. A lot of times it might be pointing to some sort of difficult transition, could be a death, but they'll know what you're talking about when you're discussing it usually.
Yeah.
So I think tarot is better at putting into focus trends and where things are looking like they're going right now, sort of like the weatherman looking at the forecast and he's like, yeah, we got these clouds building up and looks like they're going to come up, but how many times is the weatherman wrong, or the prediction doesn't go exactly like he said? Because the winds are fickle and they change, so is human nature. So
Right.
I think the tarot is best for deciphering what's the present teaching you, because the present is where your power is. That's where your choices are. And that can really change how your future is going to look.
So fascinating. Your outlook is obviously you've been doing this for a really long time and it's really refreshing to hear. No, because you're so knowledgeable and you're so passionate about it. And the way you speak about it is with that wisdom and with years of experience. And it's very, very refreshing. And you can
Mm.
really get the weight of your wisdom here. And I'm living for it. But we do have to take a
Oh,
break to hear from our amazing sponsors. So let's do that because our sponsors are kick ass. And when we come back, we're going to talk all about your new book, Tarot in Love. So we'll be right back with Elliot Adam. Welcome back to Conversational Witchcraft with the very enjoyable Elliot Adam. On the break, we were just talking about the fact that you might be moving to England.
oh yes. My husband just got accepted into the University of Kent for cybersecurity. He's actually a really brilliant computer person. And he's the one who built my website, elliotoracle.com. And that really gave me a platform to reach a lot more people as a tarot reader, from my card of the day blog and
Yeah.
people just reading my work every day. And that's what led to the Fearless Tarot book. So he got accepted to the school. We're 90% sure we're probably going this year to Canterbury. And I'm excited because I'm a big British history nerd. During the pandemic, I just devoured anything about the Boleyns, or,
Oh,
the
yes.
Tudor times. Yeah.
Oh God, the Tudor, I mean, dynasty, really, right? I mean, it's just
Yes. Yes.
generations of Tudors, and I love British comedies. Like
Oh, yeah.
I have a very terrible British sense of humor. I don't know how well I would this little Italian girl from New York would mesh there, but I love sarcasm, so I'd probably be good. Um, but speaking of your online presence, your Instagram is so much fun because you have
Oh.
those like those card polls. Like today, as we're recording this on March 1st, you have like, tarot wisdom for March 1st. And so like it just gives you like
Mhm.
this little snippet of, oh, what does Elliot have to say today, which is so great. Um so your new book, let's talk about this new book because it's very exciting. It's called Tarot in Love, Consulting the Cards in Matters of the Heart. Look at this. First of all, look at it. For those of you who can't see because you're just listening, you're not watching. The book is like a dictionary. It's humongous. There's so much information in here. Like,
Yeah,
and I'm going to be like super 100% honest with you. I do not read tarot. I'm a terrible witch and I do not read tarot. I have
that's
a
okay.
bunch of oracle decks. I love my oracle decks because they're sort of like, "Hi, this is what we could do. This
Yes.
is what it might be. What do you think?" Where tarot is like, "Girl, you better get your shit together." Okay? Like your tarot deck, I have like 2 tarot decks and like 17 oracle decks. But like your tarot decks are no joke, right? And you need a
Mhm.
skill set to read them, which to be quite frank, I do not have the patience to have that skill set. So it's lovely that people like you exist in this world. But this
Oh,
book specifically, all about love and heart matters and reading the tarot for love and heart matters. Now, I'm going to assume, without being too presumptuous, that the reason for this book is because every person, every other person that wants to have a reading with you is asking you about heart matters and love matters and
mm.
things like that. And you're just like, dude, we need to just handle this in a book, right?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
right. So I mean, obviously that's the is that the reason for this book?
Well, the reason for the book is a couple things. Uh, it actually started, I was in the yard, having some wine with my sister, and we were talking about tarot readings and how most people who come to them, there is a great majority of readings. I read a lot of people every week. I would say about 50% to 60% of the people are asking about relationships. And I thought, what is out there as a resource that really, tackles this relationship reading? There's not a lot out there.
Mhm.
And, tarot is contextual. There isn't one meaning for every card for every situation. The meanings change based on the situation. And even love readings change based on the relationship situation you're in. So
Mm.
even though the book is thick, as you say, it looks like a dictionary, it's organized in a way that's really easy to look up specifically what your situation's talking about.
Mhm.
So each chapter has 7 parts. There's an intro paragraph for what the card means in a love reading, the kind of personality you're dealing with. Then there's a little section for if you're in a new relationship. And there's a section if you're in a long term partnership. There's a section for intimacy. There's a section
Mm.
for if you're single and you're looking for love, what does the card mean? There's a section for what is the desire of the person that you're asking about. But finally, at the end of every chapter, there's a section on what this card might be teaching you. Because a lot of people go to a love reading and they're getting this card that's stalking them. And they're like, no, I'm asking about this guy. I want to see what it's saying about him. But the card's not talking about him, sweetie. It's talking about you. It's talking
Mm.
about what you need to learn. And
Yup.
so sometimes we need to turn that because relationships are mirrors, aren't they? We're attracting people who are revealing to us things about ourselves. And what I learned in readings is when you are pursuing your best life, living your best life, putting your investment in you, you're attracting a totally different sort of energy from a person. Whereas if you're desperate for somebody to come and find you and love you finally and fill this gaping hole in your heart, you're going to attract a really icky kind of person. And so, what Tarot in Love does is it really makes you conscious of why am I asking this question? Yes,
This
it'll
is
tell you
so
what's going on with the
important.
person, but it'll also put that microscope back on yourself. And it
This
really
is
makes you
so
self
im
aware.
this is so important. So my next question was, with all of these people that are coming to you, like you said, 60 or 70% of people are coming to you with questions about relationships. My question to you was, what should they be coming to you to ask? Right? Like you just said, they're coming to you and asking you about this guy or this other person or these things that are external. And you said,
Mm-hmm,
it's not about that person.
mm-hmm,
It's about
mm-hmm,
you, right? So,
mm-hmm.
like, especially in matters of a relationship, what should someone be asking?
Well, again, that's contextual too, isn't it? Everybody who's coming to ask about a relationship doesn't have the same situation. Every relationship's unique.
Mm.
And that's why I wanted to put those different categories in there because I'm not going to tell a person who's just met somebody last week what the Fool card means. Is the same thing for someone who's been married for 50 years and the Fool card appears.
Mm.
So there isn't a should be asking as much as there is a you can ask about the person. I'll tell you what that card would mean for that person, but also it would really benefit you to be self aware of why you're asking that question about this person. And, we can do it all. We can look into that other person, but we can also find out what's going on with you. What is happening in your heart? Because
Wow.
that's where the breakthrough is going to happen. And the more you're on this cycle of thinking it's this other person that's going to bring that fulfillment and it's going to deliver your heart's desire to you, the more you're a toxically passive participant in your own life. You got to take charge.
You gotta take charge. Say it again. The more you, what did you just say? That one phrase, the more you are passive, the more, how did you
Mhm.
put that? Say that again, because I think it's such an
I don't know what I
important,
said. I'm kind of just riffing,
it's
but I think I said
amazing.
something to yeah, it's the more you're toxically passive with your life instead of an active participant, the more
Wow.
it just seems to go wrong,
Wow.
and the more you're like, okay, here's what it is. Here's what I'm dealing with. This might be really difficult. Relationships are important because they really dive into the deepest heartfelt matters that probably you're here to learn this lifetime. This is deep stuff. And you're not going to be benefited by a tarot reader who's like, well, he sucks, leave him. That doesn't help you.
No.
What you need to understand is, okay, you're hurting. I see that. Okay, you're attracted to something with this person. What is that trying to fill in you? Let's circle back and find out about that. That's
Right.
what's really important. Stop being passive and just waiting for this person to call you. You call out your best life. You claim it. You go start your business, start your podcast, make your life awesome.
Hmm.
Let it come to you. The energy shifts, and suddenly you're attracting wonderful partners. You're attracting people who are mirroring how powerful you are, not how weak you are.
Hmm. Hmm. Another phrase that I love that is exactly summarizing that exact sentiment is your outside world is a direct reflection of your inside world, right? So anything, all those relationships, like you said before, relationships are mirrors. So if you're in a shitty relationship and you keep getting into shitty relationships and you keep meeting, like you
Mm-hmm,
said, what are you attracted to in this? But you're hurting, you're
mm-hmm,
upset, you're not healed, but you're attracted to this person. What is it about this person that is attracted to you? Is it mirroring that hurt, or is it
mm-hmm.
mirroring something that's healed? If our outside world's a reflection of our inside worlds, what do my relationships look like? If all my
Mm-hmm.
relationships are shit and they've got, terrible communication and they're toxic or they make me feel like crap, that's really not about those other people. It's about what's going on inside of myself. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how, how can a reading with a really great tarot reader like yourself help guide someone to the type of healing that they need to attract those relationships?
Well, I think there's a limit to what tarot card readers can do because now we're starting to get into the realm of therapy. And I
That was my
think it's
next point.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, now and if you're a tarot reader and are a licensed therapist, I'm not a licensed therapist. Sometimes tarot feels very
Mm,
therapeutic. It's very cathartic. It's powerful, but it's also important to realize that a tarot card reader isn't your therapist. But what a tarot card reader can do is bring up some issues that might be hurting in a compassionate way and call your attention to the work you need to do on your spirit so that you can get in touch with a therapist who specializes in self-esteem. And even a shitty relationship, as you called it, is valuable. It's a teacher. Relationships are here to teach us things, and all relationships are meant to be, not in the context of always being your soulmate or twin flame or whatever you want to call it. Uh, a lot of times, a relationship is something that is meant to be because it's what you're here to learn at this time about you. And if it is dysfunctional, that is a big red flag that there's something going on with you. If you're using relationships as a quick fix or like a quick high, it's the same as a drug or alcohol too much or anything. You're trying to boost yourself up on this artificial thing that isn't sustainable over the long term. And it
wow.
always ends up in disaster. And
Always
so
ends
you
up
got to
in
stop
disaster.
looking at your relationships like a drug, and you got to look at them as a place where you can really truly connect with somebody that's reflecting what's powerful in you, not what's most hurting, deficient, depleted. That doesn't attract the best kind of relationship.
Absolutely. Like, I feel like we need to like scream that for the people in the back. You know what I mean? Like, like really hear what you're saying, and I want to get back to one of the points that you made earlier, which was your tarot reader is not your therapist. Although you
Mhm.
can use your reading from a great tarot reader to explore that emotional and mental health stuff, but they are completely separate things. And I don't think that people should mix the two. And I don't think it's fair to a reader that
Mm.
oftentimes clients put that expectation
Mhm.
on a tarot reader, right? That you're going to
Yeah.
tell me what I need. I mean, I can remember in my 20s having friends that were like, oh, well, I don't know, need to go to therapy. I'm going to go get a reading. I really just need a reading to see what's going on. I
Mhm.
need a reading to see what's going on. And I'm like, that's really great. Go get your reading. Awesome. But then you really need to like make an appointment with a therapist, because
Yeah.
these things, they don't work independently of each other. They need to be, you need all that. You need spiritual, mental, and emotional. And it's unfair to think that your tarot reader is going to be your fucking therapist. Okay?
Yeah. Well, and even the word you use, I need a reading, it's a needy energy that's, again, now you're using a tarot reading as the addictive thing that you're
Mm,
medicating this thing you're really avoiding. And you're trying to put another little
yeah.
block in between you and dealing with the thing that's really hurting.
Right.
And so it's like you gotta go deep, and tarot can illuminate, here's what the problem is, but there are people who are probably better equipped to help you fix that and come up with strategies in your daily life. And again, I know therapists, I read psychotherapists and people like that who use tarot in their practice, but that's what they're marketing themselves as. And it's also something that they're qualified to do.
Mhm.
I'm not qualified to talk somebody out of, wanting to end their life because the sky isn't coming back. That's something a therapist needs to do. And you don't want to put a tarot reader in that position to fix you, because they can't.
Mm-mm.
You can fix you. And you don't want to put your partner in the position of fixing you. You can't expect that. They're not going to do it.
Yep.
You got to fix you. And so it really is about us being responsible for our own happiness.
Mhm. And using tarot as a tool, as
Yes.
as a tool to understand and interpret what maybe we're feeling, what maybe we need to work on. It's directional. It points you in
Yes.
one direction or the other to say, hey, have you looked at this? Have you considered this? And now maybe take this message and work deeper with it. So take it to your therapist, or journal about it, or meditate on it, or revisit this idea. Or when
Mm.
something comes up for you, you can remember, oh, hey, I had that reading, and there was this thing about death and the underworld, or there was this thing about the fool. And would
Mm.
this situation that I'm in be related to that? Let me think about it. It's meant to be a tool for introspection and to put you in a mindset to work deeper. Would you agree?
Yeah, there's a wonderful old saying that the tarot is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. And what that means is that when we look to the tarot to be our master, to tell us what's going to happen and how well we're going to be, when we give all our power to a deck of cards to
Mm,
say what's going to, happen, and will I be happy? Um, it's a different energy if tarot is instead your servant. If it's like, here's my intentions, how do I get there? Oh, it'll show you. But if your question is, tarot, please give me the answer I want to, fix everything, you're going to constantly feel like it's a terrible master. You're not going to get the answer you're really looking for, because your energy coming to that reading is passive. It is, completely just what's going to happen. And so it's important to make yourself the master in your own life and your own relationships.
I love it so much. And I love that this book is about relationships, right? Because relationships and understanding tarot and the interpretation of tarot in relationship to relationships, um, it is about interpretation, and it's about communication with yourself, as we were talking about earlier in the interview about the difference between communicating with your ego versus your spirit. right? And tarot
Mm,
is meant to help you do that, to communicate with your own spirit, your own higher self, instead of ego and fear. And
mm,
particularly when we're talking about tarot and love, this amazing book, we're talking about how to communicate with higher self in matters of relationships. And my kitchen one of my kitchen witch books is about love and romance.
mm,
And similarly, we're not talking about, oh, I'm just, who am I going to date, or what is, when is the next time I'm going to get laid, like that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about relationship with self. We're talking about relationship with spirit. We're talking about relationship, interpersonal relationships and communications with others, whether that's romantic or not. Love is a broad term, right?
mm,
And we share different types of love with so many people in our lives. And tarot can be used as a tool to help us connect more deeply with loving ourselves and loving other people. And I think this book is going to help so many people on that journey, Elliot.
mm.
Can you tell me what you hope people get out of this beautiful book?
Well, my approach to tarot is always fearless. And as I was saying earlier, your fear is your best friends with your ego, and it doesn't really serve you. I've noticed a lot of approaches to tarot that are kind of fear based. It might
Mm,
even be a reason why you only want to read oracle cards, because you're terrified that if you flip over the 10 of swords, it somehow means that you're getting slapped upside the head and something terrible is going on and you need to adjust to it. When actually it's like, no, let's see what that symbol's really talking about. Let's go a little deeper there. So my approach to readings, especially with love, is to handle it fearlessly. You don't have to come to the tarot afraid of, will I ever meet somebody? Can I have children one day? Is this person coming back? There's billions of people on this planet. And you're going to tell me, and people find each other every day, that you have no hope or no chance of ever finding somebody if that's what you're looking for. And for those of you out there who are happily single, you're divorced and you do not want to get back into a relationship, good for you.
good
You
for you.
just live your best life, do your crafts and do the things that
Yeah.
make your life wonderful. You don't have to worry about somebody in their underwear eating pizza on your couch every day. Fine.
Can I be the person on
That's,
my couch in my underwear
yeah,
eating pizza? See, the key is to
absolutely.
the key is to find a partner who also wants to sit on the couch in their underwear and eating pizza with you. Okay, that's true love. I'm sorry, I digress.
It can be absolutely. But I think what I want people to get out of the Tarot and Love book is that it's a book that's really going to help you understand your relationships. It's going to help you understand the other person, but it's also going to help you understand yourself. And it can even
Mm,
help you understand some of those other relationships in your life. Why is this person acting in this baffling way? Well, let's find out. What does it mean when the Fool card comes up when I've just known this person for a few days? Well, maybe it's time to let go of your fear of looking like a fool.
mm. So important. So so many things to think about, so many different ways of thinking about tarot that you've brought to us today. And I can't thank you enough. Um, tell us, Elliot, tell us where we can find Tarot in Love, how we buy it, how we follow you, where we could book a reading with you if we should want to.
Absolutely. So, Tarot in Love is available anywhere books are sold, and you can request it from anyone. Really, it's online. It's anywhere books are. If you have to go to dreaded Amazon, you can get it there. I do love, though, if you support your local metaphysical shop or request it there. It's so important that we're really conscious of local businesses and supporting those so they don't all go out and we don't have this wasteland. If you want to find me
Independent
on Insta,
bookstores.
absolutely, I
Yes.
support those. If you're, looking for me online, you can find me at elliotoracle.com. That's my website. And I also have wonderful free resources available. If you're stumped on a tarot card meaning, if you just type in Elliot, Two of Swords on Google, I'll be the first thing that pops up. And I have a video which explains the card in under a minute and a whole bunch of text that goes into what the card means. And it's also material that was the foundation for my book, Fearless Tarot, which came out earlier. And then I'm also on Instagram at Elliot Oracle and also YouTube, Elliot Oracle. And I do weekly readings and also monthly tarot scope readings for every astrological sign on YouTube. So you'll want to like and subscribe and share that stuff.
So cool. And we'll put all of your notes and all of your links on the show notes so people will be able to find you. So you should go and find Elliot and you should follow and like and share and subscribe and all of that jazz. And you should definitely pick up this book, Tarot and Love.
Yes, thank
Uh,
you. And if you like it, please do consider writing a
I
kind
know.
review. That helps us authors so very much.
Absolutely. Write a review. Goodreads is a wonderful place to put book reviews. So definitely do that. And yeah, so we'll have all of your show notes. We'll have everything on the show notes, and people go find Elliot Adam at elliotoracle.com. And Elliot, before I let you go, I have to ask you my signature question, which has literally nothing to do with oracle cards or tarot cards or any of that. The question is, if you could have me cook you one magical meal, because I'm a kitchen witch, what would it be and why?
Oh my, I don't know why, but curry chicken just came into my head for some reason. So I just like that spice, and I love that you're a Scorpio. So I think that you'd probably be the one who could make it right.
I literally have a new recipe for curry chicken soup that I am
Shut up.
going to be making tomorrow because
Shut up.
I swear to God, I have my Whole Foods list going right now with all of my ingredients. It's a coconut curry soup, and we're getting a big snowstorm, and that's what I'm gonna make for the because I like to cook like
Then
big
that's
soups
why
very
that flavor was in the back of my head because I don't even think about curry chicken ever, but it
really.
just popped in my head. So I love that.
Curry chicken soup for Elliot. You got it. Elliot, thank you so much for being here. This was absolutely wonderful. You are simply delightful. Very excited for you and all of your adventures coming forward and your new book. And I hope you continue writing. And I'm sure we're gonna keep on being best friends.
Oh, I hope
S-
so.
Yay. Elliot Adam, thank you so much for joining us on Conversational Witchcraft with me, Dawn the Kitchen Witch. And until next time, everyone, I wish you many blessings and so, so much gratitude. Thank you. Bye.